What is good, y'all? Welcome back to the Sneaker History Podcast. My name's Nick Engvall, and today I'm going to talk with one of my good friends in this whole sneaker thing, Jacques Slade. I wanted to connect with him heading into the Masters. If you don't know, he's a big golf advocate. He's kind of the face of the connection between golf and sneakers right now. He's doing stuff with the PGA Tour. He's obviously well known in the sneaker space, but I just figured he's one of the best people to talk about. I had some questions on how the sneaker world is impacting golf and how there's similarities between the way that brands choose to work with influencers and choose their marketing, and got into some kind of tough questions with him. He's a great person to have for a resource for that, for people that want to listen to the show. So this episode is actually going to go on to Outside the Box, the show that Jacques and I used to host together with Tiffany Beers, and before that with Brandon Nedler. But I also am going to put it on Sneaker History just so everybody can listen. I thought it was a great conversation, and it'll give you some insight into, one, how brands need to be changing the way they do things in the footwear industry, and how Jacques thinks that we can actually make a difference in that space, and two, how the resale game kind of could impact the popularity of sneakers and golf, and then also how golf as a sport is just changing, and how kind of sneakers and streetwear are really pushing that forward. So hopefully you enjoy this conversation. I sure as heck did. Let me know what you think. Please leave a comment, hit like, hit subscribe, do all those things. Leave us a review. I would definitely appreciate it. I'm really trying to go next level with the podcast over the next few months and try to get back to a place where everybody is enjoying it as much as I enjoy doing it. So without further ado, I'll stop blabbing. Here's today's show with Jacques Slade. What is good, everyone? My name's Nick Engvall. I'm with my guy, Jacques Slade, to talk about all the important subjects in the sneaker world today. What's good, man? How you been?
I've been good, man. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I had a famous friend come and film my sneaker collection a couple weeks back, so, you know.
Oh, that's cool. That's
kind
awesome.
of famous now. Yeah.
I mean, you were famous probably before that, to be fair. Let's be honest with ourselves here.
No, man, things are good. It's you've been getting hit with the crazy weather that we have up here the last few weeks, getting tons of rain. So I'm excited for that to not be happening, it's got to be coming soon. So
yeah, hopefully it'll stop.
For those of you that don't know, we're both in California. We're both, I don't want to say allergic to rain, but like we don't know how to drive in it. We can't go play golf in it. I can't go skateboard in it. It just throws everything off, you know?
All true. All true.
I'm thankful for it, but like,
yeah,
it just throws everything
we
off.
need it. We definitely need it here in LA. Like it's not that we don't need rain. It's just that, when we get it, most of us don't know how to act within it is what is what the problem is.
Yeah, if you need any proof of that, I think I saw some people in Oxnard surfing down the street, being towed behind a truck. So, that's kind of how crazy it gets when there's just a little bit of rain around here. So
yeah, all we need is a little bit to show out. That's all we need.
All right, so for those that don't know who you are, let's give like the full run background on how you got into this whole world of sneakers and all of the adjacent things that you're, making moves in right now.
Okay. So I started in 2009 in the sneaker world writing. I was writing for Kicks on Fire, and I started putting up content with them, mostly writing, and then I did some videos with them. 2013 came around. I started doing it on my own, and things kind of grew from there. I was doing lots of like unboxings and reviews of sneakers. And I had kind of taken a page from the book of like all of the tech videos that I was watching. And so the style of unboxing that I was doing at the time was a little different than what everyone else was doing stylistically. And I think that also helped set me apart as well. Doing it like the whole one-man band thing, doing it on YouTube. Pushing. That eventually turned into doing other things in other spaces, including the golf space, which is where I am now. I've been within the golf space probably for the last 5 or 6 years, but I would say the last 2 years have been when things have really started to really elevate, with this year, like me being the host for like the signature events for the cut on the PGA Tour channels and the golf channel. So that's like a big step to really, one, I think elevating the show, making the show, give the show a different flavor, but also I think linking the culture of sneakers and the adjacent cultures around sneakers to the world of golf and the things around golf. So it's really, I think, taking those two worlds and mashing them together in a way that stays true to both of them, but allows each of them to really stand on their own.
Congratulations, by the way. That's huge.
Thank you.
It's I know it's a long time coming, and I know that you put in the work to get there. I think it's really, you're, in my opinion, you're the perfect person to lead this change, right? Like we've talked about it at length, but I think people probably don't know all the things you've gone through to get to this point. To your comment about the one man band thing, how long was it a one man band thing? Because you did everything. And I also should point out that sneakers and like content, filming, tech, all of that's kind of a very similar, like connecting two worlds that you're really passionate about, which obviously took you on a wild ride for the first half of this journey. And now it's kind of like you're taking the second half of these combinations and going the next level. So how long was it before you actually, kind of started getting some help and kind of really realizing, oh, wow, I could actually do this for real?
That's a great question. I'm gonna say probably from 2013 to probably 2017, 2018. I was doing it pretty much by myself. 99% of the time I was doing it by myself. If there was like a bigger job, I'd hire somebody, or if it was just too much, I'd ask somebody to edit. And I think in 2018 or 2019, I hired an editor to help me with the editing portion of things. And then I think 2020, I hired a writer to help me write. 2020, maybe 2021, hired a writer to help me like write stuff, because it was just becoming too much for one person to do everything, because I was trying, part of it was me trying to do everything and trying to produce all of these different quote unquote shows or produce all of this different material for social media, and it was becoming really hard for me to complete everything and do everything. And so I hired the editor, hired the writer, and like that right now we're pretty much a 3-man team. I still hire out editors for like bigger projects and stuff like that, and shooters for bigger projects. But right now it's 3 of us, and they freelance with me to help out, and they're almost like permanent freelancers. Like, I mean, they obviously do their other things too, but they work with me pretty consistently.
I feel like that's the future of work for a lot of people, right? Like, the kind of most famous question that floats around anytime somebody talks about professional careers in the future is like every young person wants to be a YouTuber, right? And it's pretty much been that way for the last handful of years, I would say. Yeah. And I think like that aspect of it is just going to be a fun thing to watch how it evolves. Like it's kind of long overdue that people have a little bit more freedom in the work that they're doing, I guess. But it's also like, I feel like it just makes everyone better, like maybe that's a little too optimistic for some, but like, I don't know, when you're not like kind of stuck into like the box that comes with, corporate life or an entity that is, driven by investors and all of that stuff, then it's like, there's topics that you can get a little bit more, you can talk about the more sensitive things in a more meaningful way, which I think is, what's super missing from sneakers right now in a lot of ways. And one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you about it too, because, we've kind of been doing this for quite a while. We've seen a lot of things come and go. And I feel like one of the things that's most frustrating to me is like just the lack of consistency from all the brands when it comes to, like Black History Month, Women's Month, like Asian Pacific Islander, like all of these things that like they bubble up when it's convenient and it's a news story. One, I guess, like, how do you feel about that, on the product side? Because there is an element of like, are they just doing this for money? But on the other side, like there's people that benefit from that. There's opportunity that comes from the stories that are told and the voices being heard that don't get heard naturally in a lot of these places. So, you know, how do you feel about that? And like, where do you see it going in the future with some of these things that you can't count on it being a consistent thing from any of the brands unless there's some terrible thing happening in the world and they feel obligated, right?
Obligated to say something. I think that's going to be the bigger change, and I think this next generation is going to really be able to doctor in that change to the community and to all these different categories. Because as much as it's a story like in golf of how traditional golf is and being able to tell these stories, other brands and other categories aren't that much further ahead. You know, everyone does their stories during Black History Month. Let's celebrate Black History Month. Let's do it during February. But I think the next phase of that is allowing those Black History Month stories to be integrated into the larger culture and the larger zeitgeist so that they become just as known as every other story. And I think that's where the challenge for these brands lies. Like, they try to put a lot of it, force it all into February, but they don't allow those stories to continue throughout the rest of the year and letting those stories resonate throughout the rest of the year. And more than just telling those stories, keeping those stories relevant as just the way that they keep other stories relevant. And that's a challenge, because they have to, you know, everyone's hyper aware of Black culture and African American culture during February. But throughout the rest of the year, it's not as synonymous as American culture, and Black culture is essentially American culture, especially here in the United States. So it's a matter of allowing those stories to break free from the confines of being just Black History Month stories to being stories that are told throughout the year, whether that's through footwear, whether that's through movies, whether that's through TV shows, whether that's through education, whatever it is. Like, the stories of these quote unquote niche cultures need to be told throughout the year. So that if that's AAPI, if that's Hispanic, if that's women, like celebrating those stories year round the same way that you celebrate every other story. And like in golf, it's like, okay, cool. We all know who Arnold Palmer is. But great. So let's all celebrate Charlie Sifford the same way that we celebrate Arnold Palmer. But celebrate him all year, not just during Black History Month, or not just during the month that he won that tournament, or not just during the month when he became the first African American on the PGA Tour. Let's celebrate those stories all year long. And the same thing goes for every other category. Like, let's celebrate Billie Jean King all year long, not just during Women's History Month. Like, let's celebrate Arthur Ashe, not just during, you know, the month that he won or during Black History Month. Let's celebrate him all year long. These are stories that have the triumph and the grit and all the patriotic things you can say about them. These stories have all of those things, so they should be celebrated just along with everybody else and during, you know, year long, like everything else.
Well said, man. I think that's it's just such a mindset shift for a lot of people, mm-hmm. right? Like it you know, it gets to the point where you're just scheduling based on a calendar, and it's like,
yeah,
all those things should just be on the calendar continuously. You know, it's like, why is it just when there's, you know, some arbitrary Instagram post or news, you know, like, yeah. Oh, this is this day, you know, it takes away from how much these people that we should be celebrating did for, you know, whatever aspect of life you want to look at it. You know, there's so many ways you can take that, but kind of, I guess, focusing on, well, first let's talk about golf a little bit, because golf sneakers is like this thing. You're like right in the, I feel like you're that image of the This Is Fine and the fire of all of it. Like, sneakers and golf are like so like everywhere right now.
Yeah.
But I think that, you know, you're also the perfect person to be in the middle of all that, because you understand both of those things, and both of those things don't have to live separately, in my opinion. Like, I feel like you've already kind of put yourself out there, right? Like, recently you've been posting a little bit more opinionated stuff about the golf world and how it needs to change. And I can't relate, obviously, to everything, based on being a white guy. But back when I played golf in high school, I wasn't allowed to do certain things, wear my baggy ass Dickies. And that was why I didn't play. Like, I didn't show up because I was like, well, I don't want to dress the part that everybody dresses, because that was not how I dressed. That was not how my friends dressed.
Right.
And
right,
so
right.
like, I can relate to it on that level. Very minimal aspect of what you're, in the part of changing for a betterment of golf. But how important is the sneakers, or I guess sneakers and kind of streetwear is the kind of language you've been using with it. But like, how important is that in changing the entire sport of golf?
I think it's going to introduce a different audience to the game. So even someone like yourself, that wore baggy Dickies in high school, if that's who you are, being able to bring that sort of personality onto the golf course shouldn't be a problem. It's like, we're outside, and if you want to play in Dickies, like, that's your thing. You look, they hot, and they thick, but you don't lose 10 pounds because they thick and heavy. But if that's your, I'm just saying. But if that's your energy, that's your energy. Like, and it shouldn't be looked down upon because you want to bring that energy onto the golf course, no matter the setting. Like, you should be able to be who you are and bring that energy to wherever it is you want to play the game. Now, golf obviously is a very, at certain levels, golf is a very upper class sort of sport. It's a very like wealthy, I have money kind of sport. One, how much it costs, the places that they do it, and all those things. Munis excluded. Like, it's just that's just part of the game. So that's and that world has really trained golfers, I would say, to show, like, you play the game and you don't show your personality. You just play. That's it. Like, that's it. You play the game and you win. This is their version. It's a gentleman's game. So there is no bragging. There is no showing of personality. There is none of those kind of things seem to necessarily work out on the course, or the way that they display the game of golf to the world. We're not talking about the things they talk about on the course or the things they talk about in the clubhouse and all of those things. That's a totally different conversation. But I think allowing people to express their own personality through the sport, whichever way that is, whether that's sneakers, whether that's the head covers that they have, whether that's the shirts that they wear, whether that's the pants that they wear, whether it's how they wear their hair, let them be who they are. As long as they're not stopping anyone else from doing anything, let them be who they are and let them play the game the way they play the game. And I think golf hasn't had an Allen Iverson moment yet. And I think that's going to come, because this next generation that's getting into the game, they're less apt to be hampered by the structural confines of traditional golf. They're more willing to speak their opinion. They're more willing to be who they are. They're more willing to walk in the person that they are. And I think that is going to only make the game, not only make the game more diverse, but make it better, because there's probably, I would say, there's athletes that wanted to get into the game but never really got into the game, that are really, really good and just never had the opportunity, or just felt like they couldn't because they would be looked down upon because of who they are.
Yeah, 100% agree. And also just want to take a time out to note that Jacques Slade approved of me wearing a Giants hat for the first time in my friendship with him, so I can now wear a Giants hat without... I
don't think that was ever... When did we talk about that?
No, you said I could wear anything, though, to play, so I figured...
Okay.
I'd take the liberty now, while I have it. So I just want to get that soundbite for social to say Jacques approved of my Giants hat.
I think that's technically true, but I think, like, it's technically true. Yes, I can't deny that part of it. I was working on a show, really great camera guy, and actually I was up at Pebble Beach. We were up at Pebble Beach, really good camera guy, but he walked in with the Giants hats on. I was like, I don't know how this is going to go. I just don't know. I don't know if I'm going to be able to look at the camera seeing you in a Giants hat all day long. I just don't know how to.
You're snarling at the camera. No, I mean, I think that you're 100% right. Like, it's just, it's so weird to me that it's still this, like, air quotes, gentleman's game that like you said. It's like that in itself is problematic in so many levels, right? It's like you're already kind of gatekeeping who and what you consider to be a gentleman, just based on all of the things that come with that. And that's obviously too deep of a conversation for this episode. But you said one thing about like the kind of like, I guess, professionalism or kind of toned down aspect of the sport. But yet in my mind, there is no more powerful moment than Tiger and his fist pump in his red shirt. Like for, I don't know, like our generation and younger, I can't think of any other thing that is more prominent in the sport of golf across every aspect of it, which is
especially
so weird
now.
Yeah, which is so weird because it's the same kind of thing where we've seen, I feel like you could relate this a little bit to, basketball, or you could even look at like NFL, football. NFL tried to do the no celebrating thing, and then it's like, take that away. Same thing with baseball. Baseball's done it. It's like no bat flips. Okay, well, maybe a little bat flip. Like basketball kind of did the same thing. You mentioned Allen Iverson, which is obviously like where I came into all of this for the most part.
Yeah.
I think we all love Jordan, but Allen Iverson was real to me. And Jordan was real, but he was like unattainable kind of, he wasn't relatable. He was so good and so kind of polished, I guess, in the way that he presented himself everywhere at that time, compared to what we got with Allen Iverson, where it was like transitioned into like the off the court stuff that like made me really a fan, made me be like, wow, this is the guy I would be wanting to hang out with. This is the guy I'd be playing with, down the street. I think that golf is like prepared for that in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But how do you see it transitioning, that taking that, like getting over that, like kind of last hurdle, so to speak? Because I feel like, and maybe this is just because I'm watching you and friends with you and talk to you about this stuff, but it feels like we've been like at that peak for a while now, waiting for the tipping point to say, okay, the doors are open, sport changes now, and it's all going to be so much better anyway. Like I think most people understand that, like I know you can find the kind of uppity takes on the internet easily now, so it doesn't feel like most people think that. But how close are we to that, and when do you think it happens, and like what's going to be the catalyst for that to happen?
I honestly think it's going to be slow. Unfortunately, I think it's just going to take time. It's going to take time for certain things to become acceptable. Like now, wearing Jordans on the course is acceptable. It wasn't a while ago. And if people saw you wearing Jordans on the course, as recently as a few years ago, you weren't considered a serious. Oh, you can't be a serious golfer. Look, he's on his Jordans. How good can he be? Like, it was very like, he's wearing J's. He's not a golfer. He's not. He's not about this life, kind of thing. But I think now, if you see someone with Jordans on the course, you're like, oh, okay, he's got on the J's. Oh, cool. That's cool. Like that's a thing now. So I think just like that, it's going to take time for that transition to happen, and it is going to take. I think there needs to be a player that's transcendent, that also adapts the style and the ethos of street culture, kind of thing. Almost, it's almost like those people are like kids now that are just starting to go to the range with their parents. You know what I mean? It's a very I think once those kids get there and one's really good, it's almost like like we need a Tiger, but a Tiger that is more Bubba Chuck than he is Michael Jordan, kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like we just need that. Yeah. We need a Tiger that's more Allen Iverson. Like Tiger grew up in an era where he was really amazing, but he also spent a lot of time just trying to fit in and be considered a part of the group. He had to deal with the racial stuff and all of those things. And hopefully a lot of that stuff has passed, and he doesn't have to deal with a lot of that stuff now. And the players don't have to deal with that stuff now, but it puts it just needs the time to start to really integrate and grow into it, and you see small hints of it, like even with like Augusta National allowing Dude Perfect to come and play on their course before Masters with like Bryson DeChambeau a few years ago, like that. No one would have expected that, but like it's like getting the golf culture to see those moments so that they become a part of the vernacular is when I think the change is really going to happen.
That's a good kind of transition into the golf Jordan collabs, the Eastside Golf stuff that's been kind of, not surprisingly from the sneaker side perspective, I think has made a little bit of a dent, a little bit of a push forward for the rest of, the people to get into the sport.
Yeah.
How important is a brand like Eastside Golf, to, like, I guess to give a little context, if you're not familiar with like sneakers, it's up until the last few years, let's say last five years, it's pretty rare that you would get a Jordan collaboration. Before Virgil Abloh and Off-White, you could probably count them on your fingers, total
very rare.
outside of a professional athlete collaboration just didn't really happen.
Yeah.
And Eastside Golf kind of made the biggest splash I've seen in that connection between golf and sneakers ever, because they kind of came out of the gate with like, I would say probably the most talked about golf shoe in the last 5 to 10 years. How important is it for like brands like that to come into the space and kind of shift the thinking? But also, how can they go a little bit further than just the collaborative sneakers? Like, what's the key to taking that? Nothing against the Dude Perfect guys, but like, what's the key to taking those moments and multiplying them with these brands that have the connection to the street culture that you're talking about?
I think it's all part of that same process. You know what I mean? Like there's stuff happening out there now, even like stuff with Trap Golf and Metalwood and East Side and all of these. Like there's ton of brands out there. There's Students Golf and Fordham Golf. Like all these companies are trying to break through, and like it's one of those things where people need to see it, because it's not that their clothes are any different than, it's a crew neck, it's a polo, it's a t-shirt, just like everything else, but it comes with a perspective that a lot of the other things don't have. And I think that perspective is what needs to change, or I shouldn't say change. It needs to open up. The aperture needs to get wider so more people can see that these pieces are part of that same conversation. Like the Eastside logo is a guy with a chain on and a pair of J's. Like that's not your typical golfer. But there is an entire community of golfers that see that and feel seen in a sense. So I think it's more of that becoming more common, that perspective being a part of golf becoming more common. It's almost like skateboarders that are playing golf now. They come to golf with a skateboard mentality. There's certain aspects of how they skate, how they approach skate, how they dress when they skate, how that has almost trained their mind to look for certain social cues to know who's within their circle and who's accepting of their behavior and of their of their lifestyle. And those nuances don't necessarily show up in golf, but they're going to start because there's people with money that grew up skateboarding, or people that grew up listening to hip hop, or a part of streetwear, or a part of sneakers, and they look for those social cues, and they're looking for those social cues within their golf circles. And as they find them, they will become more comfortable with them, and those things will become acceptable and become a part of the game. They'll be ingrained into the game as well. Those nuances will start to become ingrained, and I think that's what it's going to take. Those nuances and those social cues of those circles becoming ingrained within the game, so that someone doesn't feel like, oh, if I need to go play golf, I have to change who I am.
This might be a little bit of a triggering question for some people, but do you think that the resale side of sneakers, specifically with Eastside Golf, because that's the first one that I saw that was like, whoa, it's sold out and it's reselling. Obviously,
Yeah.
I think if you're into sneakers, you will always have a strong opinion slash love slash hate relationship with reselling because, ultimately you want the shoe and it's gone and you've got to pay more for it if you really want it. And it's
Yep.
unfortunately it's been a part of the game for a long time, even if it wasn't front and center like it is now.
Right.
But
Right.
at the same time, we also know that it drives a lot of, we know stores that resell their shoes ahead of time to like get the hype going. So like how much of that aspect of the sneaker kind of, I don't know, it sounds bad, but sneaker programming needs to happen for, those collaborations to kind of level up and maybe create new opportunities on the corporate side for somebody else to say, oh, that shoe sold out and people are still willing to pay for it. Let's do another one with, Trap Golf or, like, because I do think it plays into it a little bit. I don't know if I don't know how crucial it is. Sometimes I feel like it's a huge part of it. And sometimes I feel like good stuff does what it needs to do. If somebody makes a great product and tells a great story, it does what it needs to do regardless of the hype. But
No, well, one, I think that's a great question, and I haven't looked into it from that perspective. But if I'm just spitballing here, I do think it helps. I just don't know, but it would have to. I think it helps, and there's two ways of looking at that. It helps in the sense that it kind of generates that hype, and it needs to, but I also feel that hype needs to be generated within, like, from a B2B perspective as opposed to a C2C perspective. You know what I mean? Like that's where that energy needs to happen. So a business needs to see that the consumers are excited about it, and then let that have an impact on their business and how they do business and how they approach the game of golf. So now if it just like the Eastside Golf, the 4 selling out, I think that definitely helped, and it elevated them in a sense, but also, having them collaborating with Jordan elevated them in a sense as well too. It kind of brought them to a different place that a lot of brands haven't been able to do. And so the hope is that seeing that brands like FootJoy, like Echo, they see these sort of this energy around it, and they start to collaborate and integrate that sort of culture into their products as well. Like find somebody from those communities that's in the design world, that's in the footwear world, and bring their perspective into their brands, not to recreate their brand, but to add on to their brand so that their products become a bigger in that space and allow for that audience to kind of be like, oh, okay, yeah, those are dope. I mess with those.
yeah, I think that's a great way to think about it. One thing I want to kind of go back to, you kind of mentioned just thinking about like golf in general and the doors never really fully being open for everyone has always been pretty obvious, it seems like.
Yeah.
But we're kind of in an interesting time for golf where we have Live, the PGA. There's a little bit of like this kind of, we don't want to do it the same way, we want to do it differently happening, but it's still happening at like what I would say is like, I don't know if it's the right word, but like the gentleman's, the higher financial levels of the sport.
Yeah.
But as you were talking, it made me think about like the thing that is so great about, at least in my growing up, about basketball is that you could go find leagues everywhere. Like we've embraced every aspect of the sport in every, whether it's AAU levels, whether it's, like, I mean, just thinking about like the stories that we have around sneakers and Kobe going and playing at Rucker Park and Kevin Durant going and playing at Rucker Park, and like the players carry the sport so much by just being passionate about the sport and going, and in my mind, I can't really wrap my head around how that can work in golf, but it's almost like, I don't know, are we going to see, I don't know, like Tiger Woods show up at a Top Golf all of a sudden, and now we have this crazy moment in the culture of golf that absolutely changes the trajectory of it. You know, not like I've never been to Top Golf,
Yeah.
and I'm not really like, that's not really my
Cup of tea.
cup of tea. Yeah, yeah, but it is interesting to think about the parallels of basketball and how they've done it well, right?
Yeah.
And how many times we can go back and say like, oh, there's all these, you know, and it's well documented on the internet of like everything now, but like I even think about like photos of Michael Jordan playing a pickup game on a cruise ship with a bunch of old dudes, you know, and it's like that kind of stuff allows everybody to feel like one day I'm going to get there. As a kid, like that's what you saw and you were like, you know, there's so many layers to that with basketball because obviously like we were talking about Allen Iverson and you have the like the hip hop tie for me was like seeing, you know, Jadakiss in a commercial was mind blowing.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah,
like
yeah.
you also brought up the skateboarding mentality, right? Like, and of course, like being like focused so much on sneakers and sneaker history, I think of like Eazy-E at Venice skateboarding in the 80s, you know, and it's like those images are just so burned into my head of like how different those cultures were, where like you could just have these insane moments happen. And I feel like golf is still, it's trying, but like it's in a weird spot. So maybe there is an opportunity for something like that. You know, I think, and maybe like we did have a little bit of that moment when I forget what the building is in Dubai that like Tiger did the commercial hitting off the top of the platform or something. But like a lot of times with golf, it's like a very forced moment that doesn't, you know, like the other things I'm talking about are very natural. Like, hey, it just happened because this person was passionate about it and wanted to go check it out or wanted to go play because they love the game. And I don't know, like, how does that happen with golf? Like, could we see even like junior level, you know, like tours or something like that, that like start to bring people in? I'll preface that by saying the one thing we talked about recently was, you know, having an amateur win the pro-am aspect of golf is to me what makes it unbelievable. Yeah. You know, in golf you can be me and go figure out a way to play my best 6 consecutive rounds and actually win some money. You can't go play against LeBron if you just are good at playing basketball at the YMCA. Right. You know?
Right. Yeah. I think so. Hearing you say that makes me think of a couple of different things. One, golf is social, but it isn't social in the way that basketball is social, in the way that football is social, and in the way that these moments are being captured and shared. Like golf doesn't hit the same way in that regard. And I think that needs to change because there was a story, what was it? I think 2 years ago when Max Homa, I think he won Genesis, the Riviera tournament, which is a big tournament on the PGA Tour. But then like the next Monday or Tuesday, he went to Arizona and played in like a local like skins game and won. But it was just like all you saw was the score sheet kind of thing, as opposed to if that was basketball and Kobe went to the Rucker and played, we would see Kobe playing at the Rucker, as opposed to that where we kind of got the score and was like, oh yeah, Max won the game. Max won a skins game. Like it was like, oh, that was the story. Max played in a skins game. He won $3 million on Sunday and won like $500 on Tuesday, kind of thing. Like that was the storyline. And I think like it was a cool moment, but it's like you don't capture that, and you don't get a lot of guys doing stuff like that, like getting into those sort of kind of things like that. I think that would help change the momentum and change the acceptance of golf, seeing like those kind of guys do that kind of stuff, because like that's the stuff that's fun and it feels less serious, and it's like these guys aren't too good to go to a local muni and play. They aren't too good to do, you know, all of the things that people would see a basketball player do or a football player do, like going to a football camp and like, players, when you see players go to a football camp and like the kids challenge them and they like dust a kid up for don't think you can play me kind of thing. Like it's that, like I think that's the energy we kind of need in golf, that fun, competitive energy that's on a grassroots level. You don't see much of that anymore.
Yeah.
Or at all. I shouldn't say anymore. I say you haven't seen that yet. And I think once that social aspect of golf comes, it'll open some doors as well.
That kind of leads me into one of the things I was going to ask you about. Obviously, you're, somewhat the face of the PGA Tour as of now for a lot of people, right?
Yes. Yes.
How is that going? How do you think that's been progressing? Because I know you've had a relationship there for quite a while, but like, you're a regular more so now than you ever have been as a part of that kind of a part of that like access that unfortunately the sport doesn't really embrace yet, but you're getting to do the things that I think a lot of people would want to casually do just as a fan, to go see these kind of things that are a little bit unattainable right now still. So how's that going? And like, what's the kind of, I guess, the vision for that, kind of as it evolves? How do you see that kind of as a piece of that puzzle of kind of bringing down the walls there for people to have that kind of access where they can create those, or not even create those moments, just be a part of those moments. I think that's the thing that's missing.
Yeah.
You've got fans, but it still feels so difficult to really feel connected to the moments as a fan compared to other sports.
Yeah, again, this makes me think of a lot of things because my mind is so like golf sneaker related these days. Like golf is the interesting thing about golf is it's the one sport where anyone can get a front row seat. You can go to a tournament and you can line up at the first hole and be 5 feet from your favorite player. There's no other sport where you can do that unless you're rich, basically. Like you can't go to a football game and sit in the front row. You can't go to a basketball game and sit in the front row. Like you gotta be rich. In golf, you can do that regardless of how rich or less rich you are, financially, I should say. So it makes it interesting in thinking of it in that way, the future of that. So I think the content with the PGA Tour is going great. I think I'm learning a lot. I think they're learning a lot, and we're really using each other's experiences, I think, to build into a place that I think will eventually be a lot bigger than what things are now. As for what the future is, I think I don't know what the future is, if I'm going to be honest. The hope is that we can help transition the game to a place that's more diverse and more accepting, and using the things that we do together as kind of that vehicle to do that. And whether that's through conversation, whether that's me being on camera, whether that's the subjects that we talk about, or whether it's the people that we talk about, I think that's really where the future is going to be, is continually to expand and making it a part of the zeitgeist of golf, like making the stories and the things that we do and the stories that we tell and the things that we wear and the things that we say part of the culture and the world of golf. It does have a very was a predictable way of presenting itself, and the reason they're working with me is so we can kind of shake that up a little bit. And I learned from them, okay, well, it has this predictable format because of X, Y, and Z. And then I can come in and say, okay, well, why don't we do A, B, and C? And then going, oh, okay, I see your perspective here, and I see your perspective here. Oh, you know what? We can do M and OP, and that's going to make everything that brings it all together. So I think that's the future of it, and I think that's where we are now. Like even like right now, just to give you, to some inside baseball, like behind the scenes stuff, like when we're working on the cut, like I'm working with their team with putting together the script. Like they have an idea for how the show should go. They put together the script. I take the script, digest it, try to and spit it back out in my voice, adding my nuances to it, adding my flavor, my cultural references to it, just to make it feel more authentic coming from me as opposed to what they would always do. And it's affected them as well. And now they're starting to get accustomed to my voice, and you can see in the writing that they're doing when we're putting together like the stand-ups and the voiceovers for the show, you can see them, okay, we're going to throw this word in here, or we're going to phrase this way. And it's starting to kind of integrate in them and give them an energy, because they've been so used to, even them, they've been so used to doing things the same way. And now I can come in and help shift the way they do things a little bit, and then they can shift the way that I do things a little bit, and we both kind of grow from it, and we both get a better experience from it, and hopefully the audience gets a better experience from it. My audience gets to see me in a place where they didn't expect me to be, and doing things they didn't expect me to do, and having conversations they didn't expect me to have. But then their audience can learn about new faces and new perspectives and new conversations just through me. Oh, okay. Oh, that's cool. Oh, I didn't even think about that when I thought about golf, or I didn't think about like that. Making those two worlds meld, I think is really what I'm most excited about, where I see the future lies, of those two worlds blending more and more, and allowing their tradition, their stories, their formats to mix with my traditions, my stories, and my formats, and bringing my culture and community and all those things with me into that conversation, making them for a better overall product. That was a very long-winded answer.
That was perfect. No, that was perfect. So that actually, the new faces aspect of that is really kind of what I wanted to get to. So obviously, like we've talked a little bit about hip hop and the connection to sneakers and basketball, and you know, I think I personally am like a huge Schoolboy Q fan. He's been, you know, a big face of the change in momentum of golf for the past, you know, I would say 3 or 4 years now, with a variety of different things that he's done. So I guess I'm going to put you on the spot. Who are like the next 2 or 3, 5 hip hop artists that need to be out there on the course with you and creating content, connecting the dots between that? Because ultimately, as you said at the beginning, it's like Black culture is American culture. Hip hop drives, you know, it might look different now compared to maybe when we were younger, but it still drives everything, you know. And it's, as you know, like, I mean, it's just, it's like runs through my veins, you know, like half the shoes on my wall are some sort of hip hop collab or Bay Area collab, you know. And I think that part of golf is a little bit different, because you don't have the, at least in my experience, you know, you don't really have the connection to the music the way, like, you could go to the gym and get into a run and have, you know, the music blasting in the gym, where you don't really have that with golf. But I still think like it's another piece to the puzzle that has to kind of be solved. And to me, it was just like, I mean, you know, like you've been up here, like we live in Monterey, and it's surreal for us living here. But I think one of the most like memorable moments of moving here was walking into the grocery store and seeing Schoolboy Q on the cover of like the local newspaper, free weekly newspaper here. I have goosebumps just thinking about it, because it's just like, this is what we wanted to see, you know, like this is the stuff that, whether you're coming at it from the sneakers stuff or the hip hop stuff, or whatever angle you're coming into that conversation, when you see it start to happen, it gets me juiced. It's like, I want to get back out and play again, you know, and I haven't played in years. So like, who are those people that like need to, you know, that you would say like could actually move the needle a little bit and like connect those dots where like we already have that throughput on, you know, other sports.
Interesting. There's so many. Well, I think on the business side, like you have to have someone like Jay getting into the game, just because I feel like he could attack it from so many different places. I feel like having Jay-Z on the course could really shift the way a lot of people think about things. I also feel like someone like kind of in the world of Schoolboy Q, like a Kendrick or like a J. Cole, I think would be great to kind of help really change the conversation and get more people into it. Let me see. Maybe someone just totally unexpected. Maybe like a 21 Savage or like a Ice Spice or something, like someone like that, to introduce it to like a younger audience that kind of changes the perspective of it. And it's not enough. I think it's not enough just to have them out there playing. It's having these conversations as well. I think that's what the important thing is. Getting out and playing is one thing, but having an impact on the actual game is something different. And I think that's where we'll see something. I think people that are, someone that's really out, like 50, just because he's so outspoken. I think having him as an ally in a sense would be great. And then who else? Let me see. I'm trying to think. There's got to be one more person. Maybe like Nicki Minaj, like Megan Thee Stallion or something like that. Someone like that in that world. Just introducing it to women in a way that they feel comfortable with it. But again, it would take them feeling comfortable in the sport in order for that to happen. So I think if we can make those people of that ilk feel comfortable in the game, they could become advocates for the game, which I think opens a whole new conversation in a whole new world.
So I want to wrap by asking, what are like, maybe not your favorite, but your go-tos right now for golf sneakers? And let's have your either your already accomplished dream foursome, or let's put it out in the universe and be like, these are the three people that are going to play, that you're going to play around with in the future.
Wow. So first, golf sneakers. Some of my favorite, the Puma Slipstream. It's a basketball sneaker that they've converted into basically a golf sneaker. Really good. It's a little heavy, but it's really, like, stability wise, it's really great. The Jordan 12 Low golf shoe is really good. Performance wise, I think the Jordan 12 Low is the best that Jordan has to offer as far as like their catalog of golf sneakers. The Jordan 12 Low, I think, is the best. Like, if you want to be about that life and you have to wear J's, the 12 is probably the best of that batch. I really like playing in the Samba, the Adidas Samba. I have like 4 or 5 pairs that I've been kind of rotating through. And like I play in them so much. I go to the range in them so much, like they're just getting destroyed at the moment. So those are really good. I'm very anti-BOA. I'm anti-BOA. Sorry.
Wow.
For anybody that likes to wear BOA golf shoes, God bless you. It's just not my thing.
Sounds like we're setting up a deep dive conversation for another episode then.
Yeah, I'm just not into the BOA. Like, a lot of people like to wear BOA no matter what brand it is, whether it's FootJoy, Adidas, Nike, or whoever. Like, they like that BOA system where you like twist and turn. Like, it's the Puma, like the Puma disc blade, like, which I don't mind it on the Puma disc, but for some reason on golf shoes, it just doesn't look right to me. It looks, I don't know, it looks weird to me. So never got into those, but I would say my favorites would be probably the Samba. I have a couple Stan Smiths golf shoes. I haven't played in those as much. I've played more in the Sambas than the Stan Smiths. So I would say Sambas, the 12s, and then the Slipstream were probably like the best sneakers that are golf shoes. Those are the ones that I love the most. Now, as far as the foursome, it's almost impossible kind of to pick because there's so many. Like, obviously, like, I'd love to play with President Obama. I'd love to play with Jordan. I'd love to play with someone like, like Tyler Perry. I'd love to play with like Arnold Palmer. I'd love to play with Tiger Woods. I'd love to play with Brooks. I'd love to play with Rory. I'd love to play with Adam Scott. I love like Hideki Matsuyama, who won last night at the Genesis. Like I'd love to play with him. There's tons of people that I want to play in a foursome with that I haven't had the opportunity yet. Hopefully that'll come down the line. So it's hard to narrow it down to just four because there's so many. If you're like, okay, you got four and that's it, like I'd have to play with Tiger just because Tiger is freaking Tiger. Like you can't play with want to play golf and not want to play with Tiger. Probably Obama just because of him being the president and just the conversation that you could have with him. And then the final of that foursome, gosh, throw a bit. Who would that last person be? That's a really I don't know who that fourth one would be because I'd have to just having to narrow it down. Gosh, I don't know. Maybe someone I don't know like Tim Cook. Just to get or like Sergey Brin, like someone from that world, like Sergey Brin, Tim Cook, something like that, just to kind of round out the world, something like that. Yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah, that'd be super interesting. I want to circle back on two things now that you've said some of that. One, I guess, how do you feel about Tiger moving away from Nike and what that potential good or bad repercussions on the sport? I think anybody that's worked in sneakers, you kind of ebb and flow in and out of your relationship with Nike because it's like they're so good at what they do.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that makes doing other work difficult. And sometimes, you want them to do more, Yeah. So he essentially signed with TaylorMade within the last few weeks. I guess like from an outside perspective, it almost feels like a slight step backward for a lot of the fans. Mm-hmm. We, for better or worse, we're always a fan of the swoosh, right? And TaylorMade feels, don't take this in the wrong way, TaylorMade, but it feels older, crustier, it's just the nature of the cool factor of what Nike has created throughout the years, right? They're so far and it's above everyone else that I would say the same thing if Tiger signed with Under Armour or Asics or, it's just the nature of how cool Nike is to just American culture in general and worldwide, but like American culture. So how do you see that kind of playing out in the future? Like will we see TaylorMade taking, more of the, maybe not the hype, but like the energy approach to releasing product or, do you think that, do you think this is going to be a shift in their business or do you think this is going to be a shift kind of more towards like a simpler approach for Tiger in a sense? And the reason why I asked that is because there was a couple of viral posts of like Tiger, with his chewing tobacco. And it's like everyone wants to be like, oh my God, like I'm just like lost my mind because Tiger is chewing tobacco or whatever. And again, like that's the problem with golf, in my opinion, right? Like who the hell cares? It does not matter what someone does. Let them go do what they do and be entertained by the thing that they're trying to entertain you with versus trying to be the person behind the scenes with the camera catching that one, 30-second, putting him grabbing something out of his bag and putting, So that was a long-winded question, but
no, I think so. There's a lot of layers to that, and I think a lot of it has to do with what the future of Nike Golf is, and that is a big unknown at the moment. I think a lot of people are wondering and are speculating about what is happening with Nike Golf, and that conversation isn't something that the brand is having quite yet. So to see the marquee, see the foundational athlete of a brand leave, it does leave room for a lot of questions. But I also think that Tiger is at a point in his career where he wants to do things his way, and I think that's where Sunday Red comes along. Is him being able to do it that way. Now, on the flip side of that, I do think TaylorMade is the closest brand to the Nike as far as like the golf equipment world goes. And they do a great job with like their storytelling with their like golf bags and clubs, like especially around events and around holidays. They're the closest brand, at least that I've seen so far, when it comes to doing like almost like special colorways that match up, kind of like the sneaker world would do a colorway of something's based on an event or something like that. They do a really great job with that with their golf bags and golf gear. And I've said it a couple of times, you know, that I feel like they're like their sneakerification, so to speak, of golf has been the best attempt at it so far, which is very cool. It's very dope. Very, very, very nice to see that energy, because it creates energy. I don't think people realize that. It creates an energy and a vibe and anticipation and hype for the game of golf that you don't typically see. So I think that's good. And if they can continue to keep that energy with Tiger through Sunday Red, I think we'll see some exciting things. Sunday Red is obviously very new. I think it's still trying to find what exactly it's going to be. We know it's going to be led by Tiger. We know that it's going to be performance based. And we know that it's going to be high quality and luxury, as they call it. So that tells us a few things, like it's going to be price point focused. Style is not necessarily going to be at the forefront, although they do some great detailing on the product from the stuff that I have. So it's an interesting play, I think, for Tiger. And I don't think that I think that the things he's going to be able to do with TaylorMade and Sunday Red, he would not have been able to do with Nike, because even though, you know, Nike kind of has like their designers and there's a brief of like, this is what we're doing. And then the athlete kind of finds out. So I don't think, unless you're Jordan, I think at Nike, you don't have that sort of like, nah, I'm not going to mess with this. And you know, maybe that, and you know, and maybe that's where the issue with Kyrie came along.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's where Kyrie was just like, look, I can't just like wear this. I don't like this. And so maybe that's why he ended up with Anta. So that's a question we can ask Nike, I guess. I can reach out to them and be like, hey, I have some questions. I have some questions. Can you answer any of these things for me?
On behalf of this whole sneaker community.
Yeah, on behalf of the sneaker community, there's a few things, there's a few questions that I have.
Yeah, no, I it's good to know. I didn't, just, you know, not being connected to the game like the way you are, I definitely would not have thought of TaylorMade as the closest to Nike. So it's interesting for me to hear. And I've definitely seen like some of the bags and some of the storytelling around them. Like they pop up on my feed every once in a while, and it's like, oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
To wrap up, like, well, first, for those that don't know who you are, how do they find you outside of listening to you here? I'm
on the internets, all over the internets. You can look up Jacques Slade, but mostly under Kusto, Kustoo. That's pretty much everywhere. Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter, X, formerly Twitter, YouTube. I don't know what's the Threads, Facebook, Reddit, all of the places. It's good stuff.
Perfect. Last question, I guess, would be, what would you suggest to people looking at golf? Primarily, the audience is going to be, you know, sneakerheads, if they're following me and listening to this show. How do they get started? Like, where do they go first to just like feel like they could get connected? Because I think one aspect of golf that feels much different than basketball, as we've used as an example, like if I go to the gym and play, I'm playing with, you know, 9 other people, and it instantly becomes social.
Yeah.
If I want to go play golf, I kind of have to know somebody to play with, or I'm going to go to the range, and maybe that doesn't feel, it feels a little bit more isolated. So how do you kind of suggest or envision people getting involved in the sport that maybe are like either removed from it or just first timers checking it out for the...
I would say start with like a Top Golf or something like that, where you can go and be social with friends. and go there a couple of times. They have clubs for you. You don't have to worry about renting clubs. You have a set amount of time, so you're not forced to spend the whole 4 hours out there playing. And see if it's something that you like. Just hit a couple balls, go a couple times, have fun, have drinks, play games. And if you get into it, then go, okay, you know what? I want to actually play. And a lot of top golf facilities have like a par 3 course, and they'll let you rent clubs and go to a par 3, whether it's at Top Golf or at your local Muni. Some of those have par 3 courses, but look for a par 3 course. They have clubs there you can rent, get those, and play. Usually for par 3s, people are either practicing or learning the game, and they can go there. Do that a couple times. And then once you feel like, okay, I'm about this life, then I would suggest getting lessons.
Ooh,
and then
all right.
Start playing. I think lessons are really important because it'll stop you from creating really bad habits. I'm telling on myself here. I waited like 7-8 years before I decided to get lessons. So I played terribly for 7 or 8 years. And now I'm spending the last 3-4 years breaking the bad habits that I created during those 7 or 8 years. So get lessons and then just start playing and having fun with your friends. Don't take it too seriously. Just be warned, like golf gets addictive and it gets competitive and people start betting money, and then you really feel competitive, and then you get mad, and then you're angry, then you're ready to throw a club, but then you don't because you hit a putt that's like 50 feet, and then you feel like you're on top of the world and that you can go pro, but then the next hole you shank it into the woods and you realize, no, I can't go pro because I don't know what's up. So golf it's fun though. It's really exciting.
Yeah. That was great. I have to ask now that I thought about it, because Mario, who I've mentioned to you before, does the customs.
Yeah.
Do you think we'll see like that become, like we're just past All-Star Weekend with the NBA, and I think there was probably the biggest percentage of custom sneakers that we've seen.
Yeah.
There was definitely more than a handful throughout the weekend, and part of the thing about sneakers that I love is that aspect of like the individualism that can, you can get that with like collaborations with the brand, and those things help elevate the culture of sneakers on a huge level. But also like, it's just such a great form of expression. I think like if you played basketball back in the day, you were writing your numbers, you were always doing something like to make your shoe slightly different anyway. So how do you see the custom golf shoe thing progressing? Because, I think we're at that point where it feels like, I think we've seen a few people play in customs, but like, it's still a very small,
relatively new.
Yeah.
And it's still not a conversation piece within that community, in the golfing community. It's like a blip in the community, but it's not like a conversation piece yet. So I think it's coming though. It's coming. It's just not here yet. I think as guys get more comfortable and more comfortable telling their own stories and not just telling the story of golf, you'll start to see more of it, which is super exciting because it means like we're like, even though it feels like you mentioned earlier, like we're on that peak, like we're at that peak point, like I think we're on the peak, but there's like a cloud and we feel like we're at the top, but like beyond that cloud, there's so much more to go, where we'll be like, oh, okay, yes, this part, we didn't even think about this part, bringing this part into the game. And so I think there's a lot there that's left. And I think customs is a part of that conversation. And also it's hard to find people in golf that are authentic to sneakers. A lot of them aren't authentic to the world of sneakers, and customs are I feel like they're a part of that, because it's not just, oh, I want a snakeskin version of my golf shoe. Like there's details and nuances to why you want that, or a story behind that, and a lot of them don't have that story behind it yet. And I think that's where it's lacking, but it's coming. I think it's coming.
I'll be looking forward to it. I think it's going to be cool to see like how it evolves, and seeing, when you think about like just the personal expression of what sneakers and like just the streetwear, the clothing, all that stuff that kind of goes along with it.
Yep.
You can think about golf and you think of 5 people over the course of the last 50 years that actually had any kind of personal style that stuck beyond the dedicated fans of the sport. this is gonna make me seem really old, but the Payne Stewarts, the John Daly's,
Yeah, man.
the people that were like, oh, I'm gonna have a collar, but it's gonna be the weirdest thing you've ever seen below the collar.
Yeah. The rest of this,
Yeah,
is
exactly.
gonna be fire.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time, man. This has been awesome catching up, and
For sure.
I'm,
Thank you
I'm
for
looking
having me,
forward to
man.
the time that I can actually get out there with you and show you my bad habits. Let's say.
We all got them, bro. We all got them. You ain't the only one. You ain't the only one.
All right. Thanks everyone for rocking with us. We appreciate you. We'll catch you on the next one. Peace.
Peace.